and welcome to a very special episode of Yeah, We Read It. My name is Laura, and I am one of your hosts.
My name is Meggie, and I am your other host.
And we are joined by a very special guest today, author Kaitlyn Cavalancia, who we have previously read her two novels, Mystery Royale and its sequel, Hunting the Strange. Kaitlyn, thanks so much for hopping on with us to talk about your writing today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I guess anytime I get the chance to chat about books with people that love books, like that's just my dream. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, awesome. No, yeah, you couldn't have said it better. We do love books. That's kind of our thing. Um, but
Yes,
we
for
had a
sure.
lot of fun reading both of these novels, and I think we have to first start by saying that it's awesome that Mystery Royale was your first novel, and
Hmm.
to have it follow up with a sequel in Hunting the Strange. I have to start by saying I know you're an orthodontist by trade, and would love to hear more about how you transitioned to writing and writing YA.
Yeah, so I feel like people are always surprised by that because like when you think of being an orthodontist, it's like very dry, very scientific, and then like at night I'm writing these like books where people are murdered and there's magic. Um, but It's funny because I write for the kids that I treat. So, like, I see the teens in my chair, like, I'm doing their braces, and that's who I'm writing for. And actually, sometimes, like, I'll have them, like, beta read the book. So it kind of,
Uh,
like, goes hand in hand a little bit. Um, but I kind of always loved reading. I think, like, any author always starts with, like, a love of books. I just loved books when I was younger, but I never really thought that I could write a book. And I somehow fell into this track where I got it into my head when I was 12 years old that I was going to be a dentist. And my parents were like, okay, you're going to be a dentist. And I was like, no, I'm really going to be a dentist. And then I went through college, did like all the science classes, went to dental school, went to residency. Like I didn't graduate till I was 26. And I just read like book after book about teeth. Like you don't know how many books about teeth there are and how big they are until you go to dental school. And so I was kind of burned out with like academic books. And I remember when I finished, I just had all this free time because I was working, but I wasn't like studying and I wasn't doing research. So I just had like time. And I picked up Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. And
Mm.
I read it and I hadn't read like a YA book in so long. And it was just like, like I can breathe. Like I miss this. I really miss this. And so I thought, you know what? Like I've loved books. I've always wanted to write a book. I'm going to try. And so I just like sat down with my Microsoft Word document and like no plan, no background. I hadn't like written anything since high school that wasn't about teeth. And I just wrote this book. And I was so proud. And like my husband took me to Staples and we printed the whole thing out and I took a picture and we read it and he read it and we were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. There's just no plot. This is a terrible. And I was like, I need to try again. The next book was a little bit better. The next one, a little bit better. By the fourth one, I wrote like a middle grade book and I was starting to get like some agents interested. And I felt like, wow, like I really, maybe I have a chance at this. Um, and I got really far with this one agent and she said, you know, we're so close. And like I did all these changes and ultimately like she rejected me. And I felt like at that point it was like, all right, I've been trying this for years. I've written all these books. Nothing stuck. Like I should give up. And my husband's like, you know, you can give up, but that's you giving up. You need to try. And so I
Mm.
wrote one more and it was Mystery Royale. And I sent it out and got signed and got the book deal. So that was kind of like my long, complicated journey into books. But yeah, that's how I did it.
Well, I
no,
mean,
definitely.
it's really admirable too to keep writing, especially when it takes so much time to write a book, and also you are working as an adult.
Hmm.
I know that you said that you were an avid fantasy and mystery reader. What were some books that you read growing up, or books that really influenced where you were going with Royale?
Yeah. So, like, my earliest memory of reading, I was like 9 years old, and my aunt gave me this like old box, and they were like hand me down Nancy Drew books, like the original books from like, I don't even know, like 60s, 50s. And they
Yeah.
had the hardback covers, and they like smelled weird, and they were like kind of falling apart, and they were from like garage sales. So, like, all the inside said like to Brian, love grandma, or to, you know, so and so. And I just remember I took this box and I read every single one. Like I loved it. And then I read them again when I was finished. And like it just felt like such a mysterious kind of like box of books. And I just remember that. And I remember all the Nancy Drew books that I read. Um, and so I loved mysteries. And then I remember reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I was just like, wow,
Classic.
Yeah.
like there could be another world in my closet. Like I know there's not, but like I'm just gonna check to make sure. And so I kind of fell in love with mystery and fantasy. And then as I got older, like I was in like that golden era where there was like Twilight and The Hunger Games and Divergent, and I loved Delirium by Lauren Oliver, and I loved like all these big dystopian and fantasy books. And so those were like really influential, I think, when I was a kid, kind of shaping my love for mystery and fantasy. Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
Nice.
love to hear. We are also of the popular era of Twilight and Hunger
Yeah.
Games and all of those,
Very
which also
formative.
helped spark this podcast for us. I really loved hearing about your essential trials and tribulations to kind of get to that book deal. I would love to hear more about what inspired you to get to what is now Mystery Royale and Hunting the Strange.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. So, around the time that I was thinking of writing another YA book, there was a death in my family and there was a death in my husband's family. And kind of the weird thing you don't think about when someone dies is like what happens to all their stuff, like the house, there was like
Yes.
property, money, and like it's such a weird place to be in after someone dies because you're like mourning the person you lost, and yet there's like money that the family's like unfortunately squabbling over. And it happened
Yeah.
in my
Mhm.
family and it happened in his family. And I'm like, I bet this happens in a lot of families. And I got to thinking, like, people go to these great lengths, we get into arguments over money, but like, what if you could inherit something more powerful than money? What if you could
Mhm.
inherit something that was rare and coveted and there was only a small amount that could be passed on? What if you could inherit magic? And so I had this idea in my head of magic being something that could be passed down and only one parent could give it to one child, because I thought like I'm from a family of 3 and I'm the oldest, so I would get magic, but my youngest brother, he would be without. And so that idea was just like kind of bouncing around my head. And at the same time, I remember maybe like a few weeks later, I woke up at like 3 in the morning, which is when like all of my best ideas hit me. And I just typed into my notes app. I remember a girl was told by her mom, run if the strange finds you. And I kept thinking, like, what is the
Mhm.
strange? What does that mean? And so, like, those were the two starting points. And I had to figure out a way to merge them together.
Awesome. No, that's really cool. I also I love when you find all those like little ideas that you can string together. That
Mhm.
always makes me so excited to be like, how can are these connected?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, when you find a through line, it is
Hmm.
like the best snack to ever eat.
Yes.
You're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing."
Yeah.
I am really curious about your timelines with writing because you mentioned that you had written 4 books
Mhm.
before. I think you mentioned that you had like graduated when you were 26.
Mhm.
So I guess how long were you writing books up until you got queried to publish Mystery Royale?
Mhm.
And then did you also have a plot in mind for Hunting the Strange? Because I believe Mystery Royale came out in January of last year,
Yes.
and then this one
Mhm.
came out. The second one came out more recently.
Mhm.
So did you always know that it was going to be kind of a long, overarching thing?
Yeah, I think in my head, like when Mystery Royale, when the idea came together and I knew I was going to have this character who was kind of thrust into this world that she didn't know anything about. And I knew there was the backstory of her mom. I knew in the future I kind of wanted to tell that story and incorporate it. Um,
Mm.
but you can only tell so much in one book. So I kind of like started with Mystery Royale, which probably took me about 6 months to write like the initial draft, and at that point, I'd probably been writing for like, I
Whoa.
would say 5 years. Um,
Wow.
yeah. And so it was like 6 months. And then it was like probably another 6 months with my agent before he would sign that I had to like revise it. And then it was probably
Mm.
another 3 months of revising before it went to publishers. And then it was like a year of revising with the editors at Disney to get it to where it was. Um,
Wow.
but it was
Did
nice because it was like when I wrote Mr. Royale, there was no deadline but my own, and I didn't have
Mhm.
kids at the time, so I just had the luxury of time. But when I wrote Hunting the Strange, it was easier because I had a jumping off point. Like I knew where I was
Mhm.
starting, and I knew the characters, and I knew the world. But I had like this looming like deadline over my head, which just had me writing at like
Mhm.
2 in the morning. But got it done.
Yeah, we talk
Yeah.
about that a lot when we do series on the podcast, where it's like we can only imagine when you have that first book, you're spending all the time in the world just making the first book. It can be perfect, it can be whatever you want it to be, but then you have a deadline once you have a contract. So now you have to essentially measure
Mhm.
up to what you created, but also with an added factor of that time against you. I
Mhm.
also have to say, on the record, I think logistically, it still means being an orthodontist and the studying you did still took longer than it did to get your book deal. Is that correct?
That would be correct, and that is a good way to look at it. That makes me feel
That's a good way
better.
to look at it.
I did this so quickly. So easy.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Anybody can write a book
Yeah.
because being an orthodontist is way harder to do now that I understand from Kaitlyn's point of view.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
um,
so funny you have a time question because I actually had a separate time question. So you mentioned that you did about 6 months of revisions.
Mhm.
Was there any initial plot points in Mystery Royale that you were like so sad to cut that didn't make the last cut that you were like, oh, but you it was really fun that you wanted it to, or like any initial points that you kind of had to let go that you thought were interesting?
Um, well, when I first wrote Mystery Royale, it was actually 4 points of view. So I actually had
Oh,
Whitaker's point of view as well. Um, and like you've read the
interesting.
book, so you can tell like I like a complicated cast and lots of like plot lines, and I like a lot going on. And my agent was like, "We've got to just someone's got to go," and it was like getting rid of one of my children. Like you can't pick
yeah.
which child to let go. So um, I knew I was going to keep Mullery, and I knew I was going to keep Lyric, and it was like which twin is gonna
Mm,
battle the other and make it till the
Mm,
final cut. Um, but Ellison just had like more of an interesting story. And so I
mhm.
went with her. But yeah, it was kind of sad to lose that perspective. And so when I lost that, I had to cut a few scenes. Um, and I feel like a
mm,
lot of authors probably do this. Like everything you delete, you put in like a dump document where you're like, I'll go back to that. Like it's not really gone. It's still
yeah.
saved on this
Yeah.
giant Word document. So I can still look at it. It's not totally gone.
Yeah. Whitaker's POV is
Yeah.
out there somewhere.
Yes.
It's
Uh,
the dump document is so funny because you can never find anything.
No.
It's like
no.
27
No.
pages, and when you're dumping, you're like, I know where it is. But then later on, you don't know. You do not
No, you
know.
can't find anything.
Yeah.
It's like the sock drawer. Like they're just in
Yeah.
there and like maybe you get a match, maybe you don't, but yeah.
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 I do
I
want
get
to
it.
hear more about the decision to make this a multi-point POV book because it's, while we have those main three plot
Mhm.
lines, or POVs, I should say, we also get little snippets of Xavier in the first book. We even get a
Mhm.
little snippet
Mhm.
of Cecilia and Esther in the second book. So
Mhm.
I'd love to hear more about that decision as a writing style.
Yeah, so like when I first wrote like the first 3 books that I or 4 books that I talked about before Mystery Real, they were all like a single POV. And I remember I read One of Us is Lying like around the time that I was gonna
Great series.
so
We
good.
love it. We talked to Karen.
Oh,
It
you
was yeah.
did?
Yeah.
That's a favorite of ours. Yeah.
That's just an awesome moment. I love that. But I read that book and I was like, wow, like she's so good at capturing like teens and like the different like thoughts and being in each of the characters' heads. And I was like, I wonder if I could like try this. Um, and so it just
Mm,
happened so organically for me. And it was so much easier when I wrote in multiple points of view. And I think part of it was because I was like almost tricking my brain into thinking like you're not writing one big book, you're writing 3 tiny books. And so like when you go from this point of
mm,
view and you go to the next one, like it's something totally different. Like even though I know it's connected, it was just kind of like a break for my brain. Um and I think it was really fun to just totally put myself in the different characters.
mm.
So yeah, it definitely worked for me. It was something I really liked doing.
Awesome.
I think this leads into a question that I had that I'm always so interested where people draw inspiration. Because obviously Ellison, Mullery, and Lyric, they're all three very distinct characters.
Mhm.
One's like broody, one's kind of the it girl,
Mhm.
one's like a very personal brainiac.
Mhm.
Were there any characters in media that you drew inspiration for these three from?
Oh, in media. I mean, I think that like Mullery has a lot of me in her. Um I'm
That's
like,
sweet.
very type A, was like the kid that was like, did all the summer reading when no one else read their summer reading books, and
Mhm.
always had highlighters and was like taking notes and was like very studious, very cautious. So I think there's like a lot of myself in Mullery. Um, but then again, I think there's like a little bit of myself in Ellison, believe it or not, because
Mm.
Mhm.
I grew up in New Jersey, and I feel like in New Jersey, people it's a lovely place to be. It's full of lovely people, but like they can sometimes have a little bit of an attitude, be, very assertive. And I feel like some of that in my upbringing is in Ellison. Um,
Mhm.
and also, I think parts of Ellison are actually drawn from like my relationship with my brothers. So I have two younger brothers, and they do not get along at
Mhm.
all. Like they love each other,
Mhm.
but like one says the sky is blue, one says the sky is green. Like they just always butt heads. And so like I
Yeah.
kind
Mhm.
of put that relationship in the book with Ellison and Lyric, kind of how, and Lyric and Whitaker, how they, don't really see eye to eye. So I don't know if I
Mhm.
really drew from media more as I just drew from like personal experience.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's
Yeah.
cathartic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always, I feel like your inspiration comes from most of your life
Hmm.
for most authors,
Yeah.
so that
Exactly,
counts.
Yeah.
exactly. We've done a few mystery books on our podcast, and every single time we do a mystery on the podcast, Maggie and I are always impressed by how much thought has to go into writing a mystery.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear more about the level of intention you have to go into write a mystery. How did you plot out the reveals? How did you plot out the clues as a avid reader and now mystery writer?
Hmm. Yeah, so I think like it's very easy when you read the finished book to think, wow, like that author must have a board with like yarn and a million pinpoints and like, it looks like a crime
Yeah.
scene to figure out how to do it. But I think for me, like I first just start like the first draft, it's kind of simple, right? Like there's the core mystery. There's like who did it, who killed them, here's the twist, another twist, and then the ending. And then that's just the first layer. And then when I go back the next draft, I add another layer and another layer and another layer and another layer, always just remembering the core mystery at the beginning. Um, and something that I do, and I don't know if other people do this, I don't know if this is something I invented or like this is just what authors do. Um, I just, when I write the first draft, I'll put like, I just imagine them as threads. Like, so I'll have like a
Yeah.
character like
Mm.
drop something or not say something or leave a room abruptly. And I don't really know if it's going to add something. And then when I get to the end, if I feel like it can, I'll like pull that thread throughout the entire
Mhm.
story and kind of just like add a layer of like, another another potential suspect. Yeah, so it's kind of just like building like an onion from the inside out.
Yeah, I like
Mhm.
that. Planting seeds that may or may not grow into something. That's
Exactly,
fun.
exactly.
Yeah. I love that too. I love that you said it's like building an onion because I feel like with both these books, with both Mystery Royale and The
Mhm,
Hunting of the Strange, they they differentiate, but they follow a formula that always allows a mystery to build. And
mhm,
I feel like the second one played so much with world in a way that was different than the first in
mhm,
terms of like laying out here's the groundwork, the foundation
mhm,
of a mystery that people are solving
mhm,
in the sense of what you expect.
mhm.
And so I guess how did you build on the world in the second one in a way that fleshed it out that was different than the first, but still kind of followed the formula of they're like going on an adventure and solving a mystery, an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like in the first one it was like very contained, right? Like we're at this
Mm-hmm.
estate. We don't really leave the estate. We're trying to
Mhm.
figure out who killed Xavier, and it's all like happening in one location. And like we get
Mm-hmm.
snippets and we hear things and we kind of understand the world, but we don't really leave. And for me, I've realized that's really like my sweet spot of writing. The second book was way more challenging in the fact that like we were going to different places and seeing different people, and I think that part of that is because like I just have a terrible sense of direction. Like my husband says that like I can't be trusted to drive or get us anywhere. And so like when I have to take the characters from one location to the next, it would just like kind of broke my brain. Like it was much easier for me to keep them in that estate than to take them to multiple places. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I think it like, added to the world, added to, like, the lore and kind of Mullery's backstory.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Definitely. I want to talk a little bit more about Hunting the Strange
Mhm.
because this feels like it very much ended one big storyline in this world
Mhm.
with Uncle Xavier and Lord Thorn banishing them to
Mhm.
I've been calling it the Shadow Realm. I know canonically it's not that,
Yeah.
but with the Shadow Amulet, it's in
Yes.
my mind. I'm like, it's the Shadow Realm in the
Right.
afterlife. But we kind of shift into another potential big era
Mhm.
for these characters with Mullery's dad being revealed as alive in the
Mhm.
labyrinth.
Mhm.
Can we expect a third book to make this a trilogy, or is there potential a few more tricks up your sleeve to continue this as a full series?
Yeah, so, like, in my head, when I first sat down, I was like, "I'm gonna write 3 books." Like, 3 is my lucky number. I feel like
Mhm.
3 feels very complete, like, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I thought, like, we start with Mallory, we go to her mom, we go to her dad, and then we, like, complete the trifecta. So, like, in
Mhm.
my heart, if things go the way I want them to, it would be 3 books. But then
Yeah.
again, like, I feel like when you create characters, you create a world, they kind of never go away, right? There's, like, other things happening in that world. There were other characters introduced. So, like, I feel like I could write more. I mean, like, there's always more to say, but, like, my
Mhm.
initial, plan was, like, 3 books. So, we'll see.
Mm.
Publishing
Yeah,
is unpredictable, but we'll see.
definitely.
Mhm.
Yep, for sure, for sure. I feel like there's a big YA audience out there though, so
Yeah, I like to
I
hear
think you
that.
I think, or maybe there is for Laura, and I don't know. We're obsessed with young adult books, so maybe I'm just speaking on behalf of us. One thing I did find very interesting in this series, obviously, the mystery is really fun and who did what,
Mhm,
but the magic is so inventive and
mhm,
so in depth in a way that makes it feel like your creativity truly has no end.
mhm.
So I'm so curious what idea generation was behind that. Like, if you had any writing exercises, because it truly feels just like a well of imagination when it comes to the magic of this world.
Well, thank you. I like to That's very kind of you to say. I feel like I've always just kind of thought like that ever since I was little. Like, I feel like my brain is very drawn to, like, Alice in Wonderland type magic, right? Where things
Mm,
are, like, beautiful and lovely, and then underneath they're, like, dark and sinister, and so that was always the vibe, and so I wanted to create magic that felt like it drew you in, but underneath it was, like, dangerous, um,
mm,
and I think, like, part of the way I captured the essence of the magic was, like, by giving it a smell and making it almost feel like it was alive, like it was something that was part of the estate, um, and I think people, like, when they read the book, they're always, like, commenting that they like the magic system and they like that, and it's great to hear, and I love that, and yeah, I just
I love that you brought up that they have a smell because
Mhm,
honestly, when I was reading it, that also helped with the character building
mhm,
because I was wondering if the specific smells that they were experiencing
mhm.
was like their scent or like it just really brought them to life for me too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's like
100%.
Xavier's magic, which is illusionary, has, like, it's always described as, like, being sugary sweet, like a scone or,
Hmm.
like, a raspberry cupcake or something that, like, really gives you, like, a feeling. I think like, smell can really evoke a memory, or trigger, like, a place that you've been to, and so
Yeah.
incorporating a smell with the magic, I
Hmm.
think was powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I also want to touch on because we get a vast array of characters between book one and book two.
Mhm,
Obviously, getting more of Mateo's backstory
mhm,
without him present when meeting Cruz and Reina in
mhm.
Hunting the Strange. Will we ever see Mateo again and learn if he got away with his sister like he planned?
Yeah,
We have to know.
I think about that too, and, like, in my head, I know what happens, and I would love to, like, delve into his story because, like, I think his
Yeah.
family is so fascinating, right? Like, we have the
Hmm.
Stoutmeyer family, and we know that they're, like, more traditional. They may have had a
Mhm.
3rd child, like, unexpectedly, but they were planning for their uncle to give him magic, and they really wanna just follow the rules and regulations that everyone else does. But in Mateo's family, they're kind of, like, rogue, and they're like, "No, we have
Yeah.
multiple children,
Hmm.
and we want the most fit heirs to claim the magic, and we're gonna pit them
Yeah.
against each other, and whoever comes out deserves it." And, like, in my mind, it feels very much like the Hunger Games, and I'm like, I really want to read about that. Like, I want to read that book, so I
Yeah,
should write that book.
yeah, the stakes are high with Mateo and his family, which
Yes.
I was definitely very drawn to
Mhm.
in reading.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. It because like you said, it feels like they have like a lot of power that
Yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like would be so exciting to see and explore.
Yes,
definitely.
definitely.
Yeah. So I guess we're getting close to about a half hour, so I guess we're kind of wondering obviously what you're working on next,
Mhm.
if it's going to be a third installment,
Mhm.
which it sounds like maybe. But yeah, I guess what creatively are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I definitely would love to write the third book. Like I said, sometimes, with publishing, we'll see where
Mhm.
that goes. But I
Yeah.
wrote like a different book that has the same basis of magic system, right? So it's inherited, but it's
Mm.
at a school. So where
Ooh.
some of these kids would go to school and they study what I'm calling is like the biomagical sciences. So it's like magic and science together, kind of
Mm.
like my nerdy science background weaving its way in again. Yeah, so it's out of school. So I wrote that. It's like in the final rounds of revision with my agent. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see if it goes out and can make it into the
Fun.
world. So
Yeah,
everyone put positive
Canonically,
thoughts into the universe.
you're
we're
manifesting.
sending
Yeah,
it. We're sending. Well,
manifest.
as I said, Laura and I, we love YA, so we'll be lining up for
Yes,
that.
100%.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're wrapping up here, Caitlin. We've
Mhm.
asked all of our important questions. We really appreciate you hopping on with us.
Mhm.
And I guess the final thing is where can we keep up with you and be in the know for all things Kaitlyn Cavalancia?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at KCavBooks. I technically have a TikTok. I've realized I'm terrible at TikTok. I thought in the beginning,
Don't worry, we are
yeah,
too.
I thought in
It's
the
hard.
beginning,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna be a TikTok sensation. Like, I'm just gonna create these videos and like I'm gonna go
Yeah.
viral. And like I had my husband shooting and
Easy.
I got one of those ring lights and I was like, no, that's not me. But I do have a TikTok. I'm not very active on
Yeah.
it, but I do like post on Instagram, KCap Books. So you
Awesome.
can check me out there. And I'm on Goodreads as well, even though I
Love.
really try to stay away from Goodreads reading reviews. That has been the
Yeah.
one thing that has kept me sane, but I am on Goodreads as well. Hmm.
Perfect. Okay,
Awesome.
cool. Well, I don't have any further
Yeah,
questions
I
unless
think
you do, Laura.
I think we're all good. Caitlin, thank you again. We really appreciate it. And to our listeners, you can read Mystery Royale and Hunting the Strange. They're both out and in the world. So yeah,
Thank you.
thanks so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.